The moon hung low over Blackwater Bay, swollen and red, as if roused to fury by the hush that clung to the city below. King's Landing never truly slept. Its taverns hummed, its brothels breathed, and the restless sea of humanity churned through its crooked streets. But on this night, a peculiar stillness hovered in the warm autumn air. Somewhere in the labyrinth of alleyways, a hound barked once, sharply, and was silenced. Farther off, a gull's plaintive cry faded beneath the steady lap of water against stone. The city, so often cloaked in the rancid perfume of refuse and sweat, smelled only of salt and distant rain. Robb Stark stood in the prow of a flat-bottomed skiff that sliced, near soundless, through the black water. He'd wrapped his crimson-lined gray cloak tight around his mail, leaving the direwolf sigil hidden, for the 7 hulks that glided behind him bore no banners. They were silent shades, carved of gloom, each brimming with Northmen and river lords, who gripped spear and axe in reverent quiet. Gray Wind, fur silvered in the moonlight, crouched at his master's side, ears pricked, nostrils flaring to taste whatever currents swept from the city. That savage head turned toward Robb, amber eyes alight, as if sharing in some secret knowledge of what was to come. The young wolf's knuckles whitened on the rail. He felt the river's soft pitch beneath him. Smelled the tarred ropes and damp wool. Heard the soft creak of oars finding their catch. Somewhere behind, Edmure Tully whispered a prayer to the mother. Closer still, Gretchen Umber stifled a chuckle that rumbled like thunder trapped in a cellar. The men were nervous, but they were ready. Weeks of planning, of whispered councils beneath candle-smoked tents and coated ravens flitting across the kingdoms, had brought them here. A single night, Robb told them, and the war would be won. The notion might have seemed folly to wiser commanders. Tywin Lannister still marched north, nursing the sting of River Run's defense. Stannis Baratheon brooded on Dragonstone, nursing grievances older than Robb himself. Renly lay dead in blood and shadow. Yet Robb had spies, Varys' little birds, turned by promises of northern winters or simple gold, and they sang a song of weakness. King's Landing, swollen with refugees and emptied of half its garrison, pulsed with fear beneath the gilded crown of Joffrey Baratheon. The gold cloaks were fickle, the Red Keep rife with intrigue, and the muddy streets could swallow an army whole, if that army moved swift enough, silent enough, like the winter wind over the wall. Still, he would need allies within. He remembered the parchment that arrived in Seaguard, sealed not with wax, but a smear of lilac perfume. Sansa's hand, thin and spidery, had scrawled a warning. The court squabbled, half favored Tyrell gold, half prayed to slip beneath the Lannister lion's paw, and all were terrified. There would be no better moment. The Stark daughter wrote of hidden doors behind the kitchens, of the secret stair that plunged down into the belly of Aegon's high hill, of the guards who turned away at the sight of a silver coin. Her words trembled with fear, yet beneath the terror Robb sensed the steel of Winterfell. His sister had grown tougher than the weirwood roots she once played beneath. He answered not with ink, but with action. And so the northern host fractured. Talhart's men vanished west, bait for Lord Tywin's scouts. The Freys, slippery as ever, played at guarding the twins while quietly ferrying barges downriver. Roose Bolton watched Harrenhal's smoking shells. But Robb took 5,000 picked men, bound helms in black felt, scraped bright shields dull with ashes, and marched beneath no sigil but the wolf that beat within their chests. They camped by day beneath willow boughs and ruined septs, moving by night along forgotten trails, and seldom used ferries until the dark mass of King's Landing loomed before them. Now, on this hushed night, the first of those men slipped unseen beneath the shadow of the mud gate. Arya would have slipped in through the sewers, Robb thought with a pang, remembering his little sister chasing cats along Winterfell's ramparts. He wondered whether she yet lived, somewhere in the vast cruelty of the South, and the thought hardened him. Every blow he struck tonight would carve a path for her return. For Sansa's safety, for his mother's peace of mind. He could not fail. He would not fail. The skiff bumped gently against slime-slick stone. Gray Wind leapt ashore in a ripple of muscle. His low growl echoed in the tunnel's throat. Robb followed, boots splashing in cold, foul water that rose to his calves. The stink struck him like a mailed fist. Night soil, rot, old wine. The misery of millions pressed into narrow streets. No matter. He pressed a kerchief of mountain mint and juniper to his nose and advanced. Behind him, the vanguard sloshed forward, torches doused, blades naked. A thin ray of moonlight caught upon a dozen sword edges, and for an instant, the tunnel glittered like a dragon's maw. They moved. Years earlier, King Maegr the Cruel had carved a secret escape route from the Red Keep, fearing rebellion. Few alive remembered the path, and those who did had long since sold that knowledge for coin or comfort. But coin and comfort were strong persuaders, and now one such keeper of secrets, Gieler, a rat-faced sellsword who had once served as turnkey, guided them deeper. He stepped lightly over rusty chains and moss-coated bars, pausing only to whisper his sign to lurking shadows. Somewhere ahead hinges squealed. Rats fled in chittering hordes. A gate clanged shut behind them. The smell changed. Less sewer, more earth. Robb lifted a hand, and the column halted. He pressed against damp masonry, felt its chill seep through his leather. Above, faint footsteps, a mutter of voices, the scrape of wood on stone. They'd reached the dungeons beneath the Red Keep. Gieler popped a rusted latch. A slab of wall pivoted inward, revealing torchlight and the stench of straw soaked in urine. 2 jailers. LND. LG. Jazer's eye. Sat hunched over dice. Cheeks ruddy from pilfered Dornish red. Their eyes rose sluggishly. Surprise contorted to alarm, mouths open to shout. Gray Wind sprang. Bones cracked. Blood spattered. Dice clattered across the flagstones, quarry for death. The jailers never finished their scream. Robb stepped over them with grim resolve, nodding to his uncle Edmure, who signaled for the men behind to pull the bodies inside and lower the portcullis. No alarm, not yet. Silence was their greatest sword. They wound through narrow passages, ascending a stair so tight the men had to remove helms lest they scrape stone. When they emerged into a cavernous cellar stacked with casks of arbor gold, Robb breathed easier. One more door, and they would stand beneath the belly of Maegr's holdfast itself. The plan unfurled like a game of Sivas in his mind. While he and 200 hand-picked men seized the Red Keep, the rest would fan through the city in 5 spearhead columns. One would throttle the Street of Steel, cutting off the city watch's armories. A second would capture the Guildhall of Alchemists, preventing the pyromancers from turning wildfire upon them. A third, led by the Greyjohn, would storm the gatehouses to keep Tyrell reinforcements at bay. A fourth, under Lord Karstark, would sweep Flea Bottom, freeing small folk from the Lannisters' yoke and turning riots into revolution. And the fifth, a silent shadow of riverfolk commanded by Brynden Tully, would crawl atop the city walls, ferrying ropes and ladders for a swift retreat if the tide turned foul. But tide favored wolves tonight. They eased open the last door. At once a flood of torchlight spilled down from a guardroom, where 4 red-cloaked sentries drowsed over their watch. One polished an upended helm with an oil rag, oblivious. Another gnawed on chicken bone. Robb counted the breaths between heartbeats, then motioned. Arrows hissed. 2 Lannisters toppled. Gray Wind lunged again, tearing the throat of a third. The fourth, a boy no older than Bran, froze, eyes wide as winter ice. Robb strode forward. Sword raised, and the lad dropped his spear with a clang that rang like a bell. Too loud. Robb cursed, brought the pommel down hard. The boy crumpled, breathless but alive. A horn sounded somewhere above. So much for silence. Steel rasped, and feet pounded overhead. Robb tipped back his head and howled, a long, fierce wolf cry that echoed through the stone. It was answered by Gray Wind's voice, then a dozen throats behind as Umber's men took up the call. The tunnels reverberated with raw, northern ferocity. Somewhere in the labyrinth of courtly corridors, Lannister hearts shuddered. The young wolf bounded up the stairs, Gray Wind a half-step ahead. They burst into the torchlit hallway where a half-dozen gold cloaks milled in confusion. One saw Robb's dirk and lifted his hand in salute. "It's done then?" the sergeant asked, voice trembling. Robb nodded. By dawn, a direwolf flies over the Red Keep. The sergeant exhaled, relieved. He and his fellows pivoted, forming a shield wall facing the deeper corridors that led toward the royal apartments. The gold cloaks had been bought, some with coin, others with threats, still more with promises to purge the Lannisters who'd hung their brothers for pocketing crumbs of bread. They would buy Robb time. He raced on, boots hammering marble now, gray wind bounding around fallen candelabras. Ahead, the Tower of the Hand loomed, and beyond it, the king's chambers. The palace within lived in layers, rich crimson carpets muffling screams, ornate corridors echoing with secrets. Candles guttered in gilded sconces, drapes shivered in unseen drafts. Portraits of Targaryen kings glowered from frames, their painted dragons seeming almost astir as the wolf passed. Robb rounded a corner and slammed to a halt, where a column of Lannister red advanced, spears level, eyes furious. Sir Meryn Trant led them, white cloak sullied with sweat. "Stark." The Kingsguard snarled. "You dare." Grey wind answered first, tearing through lamplight into the foremost shield. Wood splintered, a soldier screamed, and in the chaos Robb sprang. His sword rang against Trant's, spark sprayed. The Kingsguard was bigger, heavier, but Robb's rage was quicksilver. He feinted high, cut low, nicked plate. Trant's riposte sliced air. Soldiers jostled, their formation collapsing under wolf and man. Robb kicked a shield rim into Trant's knee. Armor bent. The big man roared. On the backswing, Robb's longsword found the gap beneath the gorget, plunged deep. Trant's eyes went wide, lips mouthing disbelief as blood spurted. Robb ripped free, shoved the corpse aside, and the rest broke. A trail of red ribbons stained the marble behind them. The young wolf panted, slick with sweat. Grey wind whined low, pressing bloody muzzle to his knee. Robb scratched behind the ear. "More yet, old friend." He surged onward. At the base of the royal stair stood Sandor Clegane, the hound. Visor lifted, burnt face lit in amber glow. He cradled Joffrey's jeweled crown in one scarred hand, the other resting on the pommel of his greatsword. At his feet lay 3 bodies in rainbow cloaks. Sir Boros, Sir Preston, and the fattest of the Kingsguard, all felled by Clegane's terrible wrath. The hound's eyes flicked to Robb, blank with something like resignation. "He's up there," Clegane rasped, screaming for his mother, and his mother's locked herself in Maegor's damn sept. A crooked grin. "Kill him and be done." Robb hesitated. Clegane might be ally or foe. But then, the hound tossed the crown. It clattered to Robb's feet. "Tired of guarding whelps," he muttered. "I'll guard the realm, if you're half the wolf they say." Robb scooped up the crown. Gold and rubies glittered in the torchlight. It felt absurdly light, like some gaudy bauble a girl might wear to a summer fair, not the weight that murdered Ned Stark. He clenched it in a mailed fist. Footsteps thundered behind. Edmure, the Greyjohn, a dozen more. Robb thrust the crown into his uncle's hands. "Keep it for now." He mounted the stairs 2 at a time. Each landing bore more Lannister bodies, slain by the hound's fury. Joffrey's chambers at last, a pair of ornate oak doors, badged with golden stags and lions intertwined. From inside, shrill curses. Robb kicked the doors wide. The boy king crouched on a table, crossbow trembling in small hands, eyes rolling wild. "Stay back," he squealed. "Stay back or I'll—" Grey wind growled, creeping sideways, trapping the boy in narrowing circle. Robb advanced, sword low. "You're not my king?" Joffrey spat. Tears streaked his cheeks. "I am the king." Robb whipped the blade from ankle to wrist. The crossbow clattered. He seized Joffrey by the scruff, hauling him down. Feathers tore from fine ermine as the boy thrashed. One gauntleted blow knocked teeth loose. Another stilled him. The throne room awaited. They marched the beaten boy down hall slick with fear. By now, the Red Keep shook with battle in every quarter. Distant clanging, horns braying, cries of wounded. Flames licked from an arched window. Smoke curled. Yet as Robb strode, stark banner unfurled at last in his train. Chamber doors opened at his step. Servants bowed. Gold cloaks saluted. Even the marble busts seemed to lean aside, granting passage. The iron throne rose before them, forged blades glimmering like a frozen tide. Torches sputtered in groaning sconces, casting serpentine shadows across rows of empty benches, where the court once squabbled. Only one figure awaited, Sansa, pale in a torn ivory gown, hands folded against her stomach. Her eyes shone with perilous hope. "Robb," she breathed. He wanted to crush her in a hug, to weep apologies for father and for lost childhoods. Instead he nodded, the battle fury still hot. "Sister." He tipped his chin toward the throne. "Ready." She glanced at Joffrey, who whimpered as gray wind bared fangs. Resolve flared in Sansa's blue eyes, hard as ice. She stepped aside. Robb's gauntlet tightened on the boy's collar. With measured force, he dragged Joffrey to the dais, felt him resist, forced him forward until his knees buckled against that cruel tangle of steel. "Sit," Robb commanded. Joffrey collapsed onto jagged swords. 100 blades bit princely flesh. He screamed. Robb lifted his voice. "I am Robb Stark, by the will of my father Eddard, and by the blood of the North, warden of these realms this night. The false King Joffrey Baratheon stands accused of treason, murder, and the torment of the innocent. Let all who care for justice witness his reckoning." Then, a thunder of booth heels announced the arrival of Northmen and Goldcloaks alike, ringed now around the throne. Many bore torches, and their flames danced in dozens of eyes. Robb turned to Sansa. "Do you wish to speak the charges?" Sansa raised her chin. Her voice, soft yet clear, carried in the echoing hall. "He ordered the death of our father, imprisoned me, struck me, threatened my life, and made sport of cruelty. He is no king. He is a monster wearing a crown." Da. Silence swallowed the hall. Joffrey's eyes bulged. "Mother will flay you," he began, but Robb's mailed fist smashed into his mouth again, silencing him. Edmure Tully stepped forth, crown in his hands. "My king," he said, kneeling, "the city is yours. The Great John holds the gates. Karstark pacifies Fleabottom. Blackfish secured the walls. The pyromancers surrendered their stores. The Queen Dowager is barricaded in the sept. Sir Loras with her. Lord Varys has disappeared." A shadow crossed his face. "But Tywin still marches. 2 weeks out, perhaps less." Robb nodded, mind racing. The city was theirs, but holding it would take more than courage and fortune. Supplies, alliances, ravens. He would need them all before Tywin's wrath arrived. Yet for this one instant, victory sang in his veins. He lifted the crown. Rubies winked like fresh blood. Then he hurled it at Joffrey's feet. Gold rang against steel blades. "I will not wear stolen glory. Westeros will have a king when it is ready, when justice sits the throne, not conquest." He gestured to the boy. "Ask for this creature. Let the gods judge him." Joffrey screeched as gray wind leapt. The direwolf's jaws closed on thin royal throat, and the hall echoed with the crunch of bone. Blood cascaded down rusted swords, pooling at Robb's boots. When gray wind released, the boy's body slumped forward, lifeless, crimson soaking the iron throne like fresh paint on old iron. A hush descended, broken only by torch flame. Sansa stared, lips trembling. Robb reached for her, and she came to him, burying her face in his breastplate. He stroked her copper hair, heart aching. "It's over," he whispered. But it was only beginning. Outside, the bells of Baelor's great sept tolled, crazed and out of rhythm. Fires flickered along Visenia's hill. The cries of small folk rose like storm surf, some joyous, some fearful. Ravens bristling with dire wolf seals soared into the night, bearing news to every corner of the 7 kingdoms. The north had come, not merely to avenge, but to conquer. Dawn would find the city changed beyond all measure. Gray light seeped through shattered windows as Robb stood atop the ramparts, surveying the waking city. Smoke trailed from half a dozen fires, but the worst had been contained. Black-cloaked sentries patrolled the walls, directing townsfolk to cisterns, distributing loaves seized from Lannister storehouses. 1,000 cheering voices drifted up as word spread of Joffrey's demise. In the distance, a lone knight rode hard for Highgarden, banners streaming, doubtless to beg Mace Tyrell's swift return. Catelyn climbed the steps, eyes red with disbelief and pride. She embraced her son, clutching him like a child grown taller than she ever dreamed. Behind her limped Maester Brynden, gray of beard, bearing parchments thicker than gauntlets. Negotiations, alliances, surrenders. All would keep until the hour rolled past. Robb let the wind whip his hair. In that breeze he tasted salt and ash, and possibility. He thought of Arya, somewhere out there, of Bran and Rickon beneath the broken towers of Winterfell, of Jon atop the wall. He thought of Ned, whose shadow lingered in every honorable choice. He thought of the Northmen sleeping in muddy tents who had followed him so far from home. He thought of Tywin, the lion stalking ever closer, and felt no fear, only the fire of purpose. They had seized the lion's den in a single night. Now they must hold it, and from it, forge a realm worth the dead they carried on their backs. Below, gray wind prowled the courtyard. Small folk kept their distance, yet some reached tentative hands to brush the direwolf's flank, murmuring blessings. Children laughed. A washerwoman knelt and kissed his muzzle, as though worshipping some old god made flesh. The wolf accepted their awe with gentle eyes, and Robb knew that, for this day at least, the people of King's Landing believed in miracles. He turned to Catelyn, who studied the city with cautious hope. "We did the impossible," he said quietly. She nodded, face lined with both love and sorrow. "And now we must live with what the impossible demands." Cries erupted below. Greyjohn returning from the Dragon Gate, hauling a wagon piled high with discarded Lannister shields. He roared a jest about melting them down to forge chamber pots. Laughter rippled. Somewhere else, Sir Roderick's trumpet sounded, calling men to muster. Edmure barked orders to quartermasters. Sansa's voice drifted from the garden, soft as lullaby, singing to give courage to frightened ladies. Life surged. Robb drew a breath of smoky dawn. The horizon bruised purple and gold, and the first rays golden spires that last night had shuddered under moon and wolf. He closed his eyes, offered a silent prayer to the old gods and the new, then opened them to the work ahead. Victory bought with slaughter carried its own price. Yet he would pay it gladly, for the sake of a kingdom free of lions' jaws, for the north that beat within him, and for the promise whispered in every folk song now taking flight along the narrow streets, that a wolf's heart, fierce and true, had seized the Iron Throne in a single night, and taught the realm how swiftly winter could fall. And so King's Landing awakened beneath a wan sun, ruled neither by stag nor lion, but by the quiet menace of a direwolf's tread, and the unbowed will of the north. Winter was coming, indeed had arrived, and under its chill shadow Robb Stark set his gaze upon the distant fields, where the next battles loomed. For though he had captured a crown, he had no wish to wear it. Instead, he would bend it into a circlet wide enough to encircle every loyalty, every grief, every wound of the bleeding 7 kingdoms, and stitch them together, not with fear but with bonds of ice-tempered steel. Yet first, there was Tywin. And with Tywin, the test of all they had dared this night. Robb turned from the city's waking tumult, clapped a hand upon the rampart's cold stone, and let his voice carry on the wind, a low, steady command rolling across tiles and alleyways alike. "To arms," the young wolf called, and King's Landing answered in a single, thunderous heartbeat. Dawn paled to a fragile silver, as the bells of the great sept clanged in slow, uncertain cadence. Robb Stark stood in the solar of Maegor's holdfast, parchment, and wax scattered across a long trestle table, the air still humid with smoke and sweat. Taut sinews ached beneath his mail. His cloak smelled of damp wool and blood. Yet his mind raced with fresh resolve. By candle flicker, he had bent the city, but daylight demanded mastery. Gray wind sprawled near the hearth, chin on paws, yellow eyes tracking every nervous messenger that flitted through the doorway. Rickard Karstark arrived first, scarred and brooding after a night pacifying Flea Bottom. His beard was matted with ash, his cloak singed at the hem. When Robb offered watered wine, he shook his head. Thieves and whores swarmed the alleys, Karstark growled. Yet when our banners came, they cheered. They loathe the lion more than they fear the wolf. But gold buys daggers. We must feed them, or fight them, before Tywin turns hunger into revolt. Edmure stepped in behind him, face flushed from hasty sleep. Grain barges riot at anchor upriver. The master of coin tried to hide them in the rush, he reported. We seized 7 before dawn, enough to keep bread in bellies for a moon's turn, maybe 2 if we rationed tight. Robb nodded, scratching a note. Distribute loaves, promise honest prices. Feed them, and they will call you savior, not conqueror. He sealed the message with direwolf wax and pressed it into the hands of a page. Greatjon Umber thundered in next, hauling a bundled heap of crimson and gold, the captured standards from every gatehouse. With a laugh like rolling boulders, he flung them at Robb's feet. Paint the walls with lions, the giant boomed. But hang these tatters over the privies, for wiping arses. He clapped the young wolf's shoulder hard enough to jar bone. Word flies faster than ravens. Small folk chant your name in potshops already. They call you the Night Wolf, the king who stole a city while the moon slept. No. The night was mercy, Robb answered, tempering the roar with steel calm. Hold their love by sunrise deeds. We treat prisoners kindly, set fair prices, and keep discipline. Any man caught looting loses a hand. Umber's grin stretched wide. Harsh on our lads. Less harsh than rebellion behind our walls while Tywin claws at the gates. The other lords quieted. Tywin's name weighed heavier than iron. Scouts placed the Lion Lord less than 11 days' march west, driving exhausted levies before hardened veterans. Ziga engines trundled with him, and wagons of fresh swords hired from the Golden Company, their contract inked in secret while Robb stole through sewers. And somewhere beyond marched Sir Gregor Clegane, the mountain, a butcher, unleashed. Robb unrolled a crude map on the table. Red pins dotted the King's Road, blue marked fords on the Blackwater. Black crowned the encircling walls. He spoke low, but sure. We cannot hold these stones alone. Mace Tyrell owns the Reach and half the river grain. Stannis commands ships enough to cut our supply lines. Both will weigh their coin on Tywin's scale unless we tip it first. Then so. Tip it with what? Edmure scoffed. Promises. We have no treasury. We have something rarer than gold, Robb said. We have leniency. He thumbed wax on a second parchment. Send riders to High Garden under white flag. Offer Lady Margaery safe passage to treat with me. Promise her brother Loras may keep his titles if the Tyrell banners guard these walls beside ours. In return, I will wed Margaery. Gasps rang around the table. Even Grey Wind lifted his head. Catelyn Stark, silent till then, stepped from the alcove where she'd listened from shadow. Her eyes were rimmed red from weeping over the dead carried into the sept, yet her spine held straight as the old weirwood trunk smoldering in her northern soul. Your troth was pledged to Jane Westerling, she reminded softly. Would you break sacred vows? Robb met her gaze. I would end this war, Dart. Jane won't sit a throne the North despises. Winterfell smolders, the Freys mutter. I cannot win 7 kingdoms by insisting on a boy's heart. I must trade one broken promise for peace that spares tens of thousands. Now. Silence spread like frost. Catelyn closed her eyes, pain etched deep, but after a breath she nodded. Spoken like your father at 15, when he chose honor over desire. Greatjon huffed. Robb's right, wolves mate in winter, but the pack must live to see spring. Send the proposal afore the Queen of Thorns sticks us with her rose barbs. If she refuses, we still hold the princess hostage in the sept. Hostage? Catelyn's head snapped up. We are not Lannisters to threaten a woman of the faith. Margaery's in the sept with Cersei, Edmure countered. Better a hostage of courtesy than a pawn of lions. The word lions drew them all to the third thorn. Cersei Lannister barricaded among crystal columns, clutching her youngest son, and what guards she could bribe with gemstones ripped from the crown Robb had spurned. 3 attempts to parley ended with arrows thunking into shields. Her defiance simmered like wildfire beneath Beller's domes. Robb sealed a new wax note in black. Lord Karstark, ride to the sept with Maester Brynden and 6 singers. Offer safe escort to the Queen Dowager and Prince Tommen, her guards unharmed. Tell her the realm deserves due trial, not hostage walls befouled with butcher's work. If she surrenders before nightfall, she keeps the comforts of her apartments under watch. Should she refuse, we close the cordon and starve her until Tywin comes for... Karstark's nod held grim respect. He took the letter and strode away. Now a lighter tread crossed the rushes. Sansa Stark flanked by 2 silver-tongued bards whose lutes hung quiet at their backs. Her hair, washed of bloodstains, gleamed copper against a gown the color of fresh snow, slit for speed. Her eyes, once misted in fear, shone keen as glass. She curtsied. I have complied, my lord, she said. Songs ride every breeze. A valiant wolf who spared the small folk. A monstrous cub slain upon the throne he stole, and a queen who hides in holy shadows, while mothers outside beg bread. The city listens. Robb's chest tightened at her poise. In 2 nights she had shed the timid girl, who once embroidered by Winterfell's hearth, and donned a courtly armor as strong as any steel. He let warmth show in a slight smile. You are our North Star, Sansa, bright and fearless. Color glowed faintly in her cheeks. Fearless, no. But I have learned courage is only fear with honor harnessed. Behind her, Grey Wind's head tilted, nostrils twitching. Robb caught the scent too, smoke tinged with pitch, faint but urgent. A knock followed, and a burly sergeant entered, helm tucked underarm. My king, a lone galley slips upriver, striped sails black and gold. Dragonstone sigil, burning heart within stag. They fly parley white. Ennis, Dottus. Grind of stone-cold duty rumbled in Robb's chest. Summon Ser Davos Seaworth to the throne room, he ordered. And bring the blackfish from the walls. Let us see what the Lord of Dragonstone desires. The Iron Throne stood veiled in canvas now, a gesture of humility Robb insisted upon, though its silhouette still snarled beneath the covering like a chained beast longing to taste flesh again. In its shadow waited Ser Davos, lean and weathered, onion badge glinting on rough-spun cloak. His maimed hand rested easy on his belt. Edmure had escorted him through halls lined with stark spears. Now he bowed before Robb, gaze steady. His Grace Stannis Baratheon sends regards. Davos began. Voice rasped from salt wind. He acknowledges the wolf's swiftness and claims no quarrel with justice served to false kings. Yet he reminds all that the Iron Throne belongs by law to Lord Stannis, firstborn brother of King Robert. His Grace proposes an alliance against Lord Tywin. Combined, our swords outnumber Lannister host twofold. When victory is won, the North may part from southern fealties if it wills, provided Lord Robb swears to bend knee in name only for the span of this war, and delivers Sansa Stark to wed King Stannis, securing both houses in lawful union. And no. Sansa flinched, quickly schooling her face. Robb swallowed bile. Another marriage pitched upon the table like dice of fate. Greatjon snarled. Bend the knee. We hold the city. Let Stannis bend his pride, and thank us for the walls he could not breach. But Davos remained unruffled. Walls crack beneath siege. His Grace recalls your father's head on these steps. He would see House Stark avenge him, not merely rule rubble. Caitlin raised a hand. Lord Davos, does your king come in good faith? Dragonstone banners burned the mother's icons and crucified lords who balked at his red priests. Davos' face tightened. Queen Melisandre ignites many hearts. Yet my king fights for law, not flame. He permits each man keep his god. Robb inhaled slowly. Marriage again. Sansa this time, to a king haunted by shadows. Yet Stannis brought ships, seasoned knights, and a claim many would answer to quell chaos. An alliance might break Tywin's spine before he reached the gates. Robb motioned Sansa forward. She stood tall, voice clear. Lord Davos, I thank your king for faith in my hand. Yet I gave no troth, nor shall I be bartered as coin while men call it honor. If King Stannis desires union with House Stark, he may first kneel before the godswood and vow to guard north and south alike. I will wed no man who seeks a crown more than a kingdom's heart. Grey wind rumbled approval. In Davos' eyes flickered respect. He bowed. I will carry your words, my lady, and yours, my lord. He turned to Robb. But heed this. Storms close fast upon unbarred doors. My king sails within 8 days, 100 galleys strong. If the lion reaches you first, the storm may find only carcass and ash. Robb dismissed him under escort, promising answer by raven. When Davos' footsteps dwindled, Robb faced his council. 2 suitors, 2 storms, he murmured. Tyrell roses and Baratheon fury. Either could shield us or bleed us dry. Edmure tapped the map. We could court both. Wed Tyrell wealth, and grant Stannis joint command of fleets. Promise him Storm's End and Dragonstone uncontested, in exchange for pincer strike on Tywin. Bam! Greyjohn barked laughter. Juggle swords, nephew. Drop one, and it takes our head. Caitlyn's gaze settled on Robb. Better one strong ally than 2 cunning foes. Yet stronger still is the North itself. Have we forgotten our bannermen starve beneath broken moats? We have won a city, but lost Winterfell to Ironborn long months ago. The Boltons hold the ruins now, flaying those who kneel. Until you reclaim your own hearth, every promise sounds hollow. Pain speared Robb's heart. Theon's betrayal still festered like frostbite. The ghost of burned Winterfell haunted each dream. He pictured Bran and Rickon, gone north into Godswood myths. Alive, he prayed. Rage churned anew. I will reclaim Winterfell, he swore. But if Tywin breaks our siege first, we lose all cause before we begin. We strike him here with every hammer we possess. He glanced to Sansa, whose silent resilience spoke volumes. First, we must secure a heart for this city. His gaze shifted to Greyjohn. Margaery's hand wins bread and spears. Send Maester Brynden to Highgarden this hour. Offer alliance sealed by marriage. Mine. Caitlin exhaled. Grief mingled with relief that spared her daughter. Sansa squeezed Robb's hand under the table. Then, Robb continued, draft reply to King Stannis. Avow support for his claim when Tywin falls, provided he marches with us. No knee is bent this day. We stand as equals until the lion is slain. 2 blades, Greyjohn murmured, grudging admiration in his tone. 1 rose, 1 stag. A rose and a stag share thorns, Edmure warned. But the decision stood. That afternoon, smoke curled above the river gate as Lannister prisoners were marched, shackles clanking, to begin digging fresh latrines outside the garrison barracks. Robb insisted officers labor beside common soldiers, dissolving rank into equal penance beneath the sun. Some Northmen grumbled. Captured knights deserved ransom, not toil. But Robb spoke of Harrenhal dungeons and Ned Stark's grave, and silence answered. In the streets, gold cloaks replaced lion badges with direwolf pins hammered from scrap tin. Children scurried about, chanting doggerel of young wolf bites the golden cub. Shopkeepers reopened shutters, daring to hope commerce might bloom under new rule. Robb rode slowly through their midst astride a black courser, unhelmed so faces might memorize his. He bowed to fishwives, accepted blossoms from trembling girls, and ordered grain gifted to orphan houses. Each kindness stitched thread between conqueror and conquered. Yet, unrest simmered. Twice his guard dispersed mobs hunting Lannister sympathizers. A rumor spread of Cersei mixing poison in the Sept's holy wine. Another claimed Tywin already breached the Roserad. Robb quelled fear with visible patrols, but anxiety seeped like damp through rotting beams. When dusk bled scarlet between towers, a horn blared from the Dragon Gate. Robb galloped there, gray wind loping beside. A rider in Tyrell green knelt amid dust, his horse foam-flecked. He bore a sealed rose-pink parchment trimmed with gold. Robb slit it open under torchlight while the rider gulped water. Lady Olenna, the Queen of Thorns, wrote in clipped, sardonic prose. She accepted the offer of alliance, but not marriage without negotiation. Margaery would ride to King's Landing within 4 days, escorted by 1,000 knights under Lord Mathis Rowan. Tyrell levies would march close behind, though command would remain joint until satisfactory demonstration of Stark honor and Tyrell security. Furthermore, Olenna requested immediate release of Loras Tyrell from siege within the Sept and guarantee of his safety. Failure to comply annulled all terms. Robb's mouth quirked, despite fatigue. The old rose pruned hard. He dashed response. Sir Loras would be freed to his sister's escort at first light, provided he swore on his blade not to raise arms against House Stark until alliance finalized. Hospitality and Maegor's holdfast would greet Lady Margaery. With wax hot, he sealed the letter and placed it in the rider's hand. But as the Tyrell messenger turned, a fresh bray rose, this time from the western walls. The young Squire Heward sprinted breathless. Scout sight columns on the King's Road. 2,000 cavalry riding bannerless, dust-heavy. Advance screen of Lord Tywin's van, no doubt. He gulped air. 3 days out, maybe 2 if they push. Robb thanked him and dismounted. Gray wind nuzzled his gauntlet, sensing the tension taut as bowstring. Robb stroked the dire wolf's head. Eyes turned west to where the horizon glowered beneath storm clouds of kicked-up dust. Tywin approached, siege towers lumbering in his wake like wooden titans eager to gnaw stone. The race tightened. Tyrell reinforcements 4 days, Lannister van 2, Stannis fleet 8. Robb's fist clenched. He would meet Tywin outside the walls, else be pinned between hammer and anvil. But with what strength? His 5,000 were weary. Gold cloaks could barely hold a spear line. Supplies scant. He needed a swift, brutal stroke to shatter Tywin's confidence before bulk of his host arrived. Something unexpected as the night raid itself. On the battlements above, a raven cawed. Memory flickered. Tyrion Lannister's wildfire stash under the city. The very barrels Robb had seized that dawn. Enough green flame to scour a fleet. Enough to ruin a king's road. He turned to Heward. Send word to the Guildhall of Alchemists. I summon Wisdom Howling at once. Wildfire, a perilous friend, but friend nonetheless if yoked to cunning. Night draped the city in velvet gloom when Howling arrived, robes embroidered with gleaming cat's eyes that winked in torchlight. His thin smile wavered between greed and fear. Your grace honors us with trust, he lisped, bowing thrice. Long has King's Landing underestimated the guild's potency. Robb dispensed pleasantries quickly. How many jars remain? 700, kept cool in the catacombs beneath the dragon pit. Enough to ignite a lake. Hylaine's gaze glittered. But transport is perilous. One errant spark, and we shan't move them far. Robb unfurled anew the map, this one inked since afternoon to mark streams crossing the King's Road. We carry 50 jars to this bridge on the Manderbrook, stone arches narrow enough to funnel cavalry. The rest we bury in trenches along the road, sealed in pitch-soaked cloth. My outriders herd Tywin's van onto the bridge. Archers ignite the flame. The road becomes a ring of fire. Halling's tongue flicked over cracked lips. The substance obeys no master once loosed. Wind turns flame back upon sender. A pyre so great could scorch half a league. Robb's mouth hardened. Then we harness wine too. The gods grant breeze from the sea most mornings. We strike at dawn, when Tywin rides with sun behind. Any flame blows westward, toward him, not us. Karstark murmured a curse in old First Men tongue. Edmure eyed the map's red arcs. We trust weather more than swords. We trust uncertainty, Robb said. Tywin expects siege, not ambush. Fire will throw ranks into chaos. Then we charge from woods on flanks with every horse north of Dorne. Now. He looked to Halling. Can you deliver barrels quietly? The pyromancer bowed. Wisdoms obey, but we require sworn protection. The substance is temperamental, easily insulted. You'll have Stark shields, and should one jar break unfired, I'll hold you blameless. But if you unleash even a spark within these walls, I'll nail you to the gates. Halling paled, bowing himself away. Greatjon pounded a fist into palm. A taste of dragon fire. That'll sour lion bellies. He bellowed for captains to muster cavalry by midnight. Robb dismissed counsel, but as torches dwindled, Catelyn lingered. She placed gentle hands on her son's armored shoulders. Fire kills swift, she whispered, yet burns long inside the soul. Take care the blaze you kindle does not devour the man I raised. Robb covered her fingers. I'll temper fury with mercy, mother. But war spares no innocence if it drags. One cruel dawn may save 10 gentle dusks. Then? She searched his face, seeing the boy who raced through Winterfell snow, seeing the hardened king tempered by flame of loss. Tears welled, though she forced a smile. Then let the old gods shield you, as they once shielded your father at the Trident. Robb kissed her brow and strode into the night, gray wind shadowing silent beside. Before first light, 300 horsemen rode south beneath cloaks, dyed dun to match dusty hills. At their head galloped Robb, cloak streaming, a single weirwood arrowhead clasp at his throat. Gray wind loped ahead as silent scout. Behind, Edmure commanded, left flank and Karstark the right. Greatjon led reserve in thicketed copse. Halling's wagons rattled at the rear, canvas disguising lethal cargo. Up the road beyond, screens of outriders harassed the Lannister van, teasing them into hasty pursuit. A chill sea wind kissed Robb's cheeks as dawn's first blush painted clouds rose gold, just as he prayed. He inhaled briny promise. The bridge lay a quarter-mile ahead, stone arches spanning a creek bed, baked dry by late summer. Northmen worked through the night, hollowing trenches on each side of the causeway, planting clay pots of wildfire like seeds of doom, then tamping back earth. Arrows dipped in lamp oil lay bundled beneath hedge. Robb surveyed placements, approving. If all went true, Tywin's riders would charge onto the bridge, see cavalry bristling beyond, and funnel tight where no outrider could flank. When the rear ranks pressed, wildfire would ignite from either side, turning road to blazing corridor. Panic would ripple, and then the wolf would strike. Dust plumes rose on the horizon. Horn calls drifted, bold brassy. Robb's heart hammered. He raised a fist. Men melted into scrub. Only Halling and his assistants remained visible, rolling a final cart under Bridge's shadow, green fluid sloshing within glass guts. The Lannister vanguard thundered closer, 500 knights in enameled plate. Banners hid but lions roaring on shield faces. At their head rode Ceridam Marbrand, auburn hair bright as copper, sword raised high. His outriders saw nothing amiss save a band of pyromancers fussing with wagons. Marbrand reined up, voice carrying. What ruse is this? The Guildhall's wagons should be in the city. No. Halling bowed low, trembling. Urgent delivery for the front. Per his lordship, Tywin's command. Marbrand scowled, but war bred haste. He waved the convoy aside and spurred onto the bridge. Rank upon rank clattered after, hooves striking stone in drum-beat measure. When 300 knights filled the span, Robb whispered to Grey Wind. The direwolf darted to a hidden pit, where Umber crouched with bow. A nod passed. Torch met at arrow shaft. Flame licked oil-soaked fletching. Robb drew breath, memory of Bran's fall in his eyes, of Ned's head on pike, of Theon's betrayal. He exhaled. The arrow streaked into the nearest trench. Silence split, then a roar like God's shattering sky. Green flame erupted in rolling wave, engulfing roadside grasses, leaping high as keep towers, curling inward beneath wind's gift toward stone bridge. Knights screamed, blinded as emerald tongues lick steel. Horses reared, flung riders, plunged burning into dry creek. Another trench ignited on far bank, hemming them in. Robb's horn sounded. Northmen charged from woods with howls, lances leveled. Greyjohn's mass slammed into panicked Lannisters from rear. Edmure's left hook cut through flank. Confusion reigned. Some knights tried to wheel, but bridge bottlenecked them. Others spurred into wildfire, armor glowing red-hot before flesh cooked within. Robb's sword flashed, notching helm of a knight who never saw him. Grey wind hurled a captain from saddle, tearing throat mid-air. Flames roared, sparks riding wind like crimson snow. Smoke stung eyes, yet wind carried heat westward exactly as prayed. In the maelstrom, Sir Adam rallied a small knot, carving path toward Robb. Marbran's blade dripped green gore, eyes wild. He recognized the wolf helm. With a cry he charged. Their swords met ringing. Robb parried, riposted, shattered visor. Marbran pressed relentless, but panic eddied at his back. Burning steeds, shrieking men. Robb caught his blade on crossguard, slid close, pommel smashed temple. Copper hair darkened with blood. As Marbran slumped, Robb seized his banner, ripping lion free, and held it high where smoke billowed. "Hear me," he bawled. The battlefield seemed to hush, flames crackling. Sir Adam yields. Any man who lays down arms walks free under truce. Fight and feed the fire. Knights cast helms aside, threw swords clanging to stone. Others, trapped by flame, plunged into creek to douse heat. Within moments, the bridge was litter of scorched sigils and smoldering pennons. But the van lay broken. Only 200 staggered or crawled away. The rest sprawled charred upon earth. Robb eyed wildfire pits, still flaring but waning. Helene's men hurried to smother stray sparks with damp sand, fear plain. Robb dismounted near Sir Adam, who nursed split brow. The young Stark extended water. Marbran gulped, then managed hoarse laugh. "Wolf fights like dragon," he rasped. "Tywin will taste this scorch." Robb answered, "Tell him the North remembers, and now the South learns." He gestured for Karstark to escort prisoners under guard. They moved fast, hauling unbroken horses and salvageable armor, smothering last flames. Within an hour, the field was theirs, a blackened scar across King's Road memory. Yet dusk revealed plumes of fresh dust, Tywin's main host hastening at news. No time to drag trophy. Robb ordered withdrawal along wooded byways, wounded carried in makeshift litters. Wildfire's pall hid retreat. When Lannister outriders arrived, they found only ruin, bridge weakened by heat, and wind still carrying stench of charred lion. 3 days blurred in whirl of preparation. Tywin encamped beyond Burning Bridge to rebuild crossing, wary of further traps. His scouts probed city walls, found vigilant archers on every crenel. Meanwhile, Rowan's Tyrell spears marched through the riverlands, banners bright, welcomed at the Dragon Gate by Lord Tully under white peace flag. Loras rode out of the sept into his sister's arms, but true to vow, raised no blade. Margaery arrived on palanquin of blushing pink silk, smiles gentle, eyes sharp as thorn, and that very evening dined beside Robb beneath arbor strewn with lanterns. Conversation mingled warmth with strategy, feeding the poor healing war orphans, offering Reach grain in exchange for guild charters. They spoke of music. Robb fumbled names, while Margaery recalled a northern lullaby her septa once sang, and he joined the refrain. Even Grey Wind accepted rose-fed tidbits from her hand, tail thumping. Yet politics sharpened sweetness. Olenna required oath that Robb would maintain southern heartlands united beneath banner of peace, not northern secession. Robb replied that a king who protected his people need fear no secession. He pledged homespun justice over iron tyranny. Margaery's smile hinted at roses blooming even in winter snows. Stannis' fleet anchored at Blackwater Mouth 2 dawns later. Warships bedecked in fiery hearts lined the bay, siege towers mounted with scorpions. Davos rode ashore, bearing acceptance of Robb's terms. Joint assault against Tywin, Storm's End guaranteed, Sansa's hand not yet required, pending counsel with Lady Stark. Swords had outweighed pride. For now. Thus King's Landing found itself girded by wolf, rose and stag, each wary yet bound by shared desire to sever lion's mane. On the 6th morning since the bridge inferno, black ravens took flight from Lannister encampment. Tywin moved. His rebuilt crossing spanned creek under shield roof. Siege towers rolled, battering rams gleamed. 30,000 foot, 12,000 horse. Banners, rippling crimson gold. The roar of their march gusted over dusty fields like approaching tempest. Robb surveyed from city ramparts, Stannis at his side, expression carved of stone, Marjorie slightly behind, flanked by armored Tyrell brothers. Tension crackled. But when Tywin arrayed before walls, he found 3 hosts upon battlements. Wolf's Head rose fiery stag, each fierce alone, formidable united. Trumpets blared. A single rider advanced beneath parley flag. Kevan Lannister, dour face lined with toil. He reigned beneath mud gate, voice carrying. Lord Tywin offers honorable siege. Surrender the city and heirs, and he grants pardon to foot soldiers, leniency to lords, merciful exile to northern rabble. Resist and King's Landing drowns in lion's roar. Robb answered from high walkway. Tell your lord we offer him passage home. Lay down arms, release Stark captives, renounce claims of your bastard king. Kevan bristled. Tommen is Baratheon by deed of Robert. Tommen will live, tutored in kindness not cruelty, Robb countered. But our terms end there. Withdraw, or bleed. Now. Thunderclouds bruised the horizon. Lightning flickered like quicksilver veins. Kevan spurred back. Ziga began. Tywin's catapults hurled stones by afternoon, cracking against gatehouses. Stannis' fleet answered with flaming shot, forcing Lannister engineers to scurry. Tyrell longbows sang, lofting storms of arrows that thudded amongst gold-clad ranks. Northmen poured scalding oil whenever ladders inched too near. Wildfire reserves remained guarded, but Robb threatened their use and crews trembled. For 3 days stone and fire pounded walls. Storm clouds burst on second night, rain sluicing gore from stones, extinguishing some fires, but lightning struck a siege tower, setting pitch-coated beams ablaze. Soldiers screamed as tower toppled into muddy morass. Yet lions persisted, veterans digging trenches, erecting mantlets, inching closer. On dawn of 4th day, Robb convened war council in Tower of the Hand. Faces haggard, but spirits fierce. Stannis proposed night assault on siegworks. Greatjon favored sally ride at noonlight when men saw their king. Margaery urged patience, citing reach wagons bearing fresh supplies en route. Hallyne, ever eager, touted final barrels of wildfire for surprise strike. Catelyn listened, then spoke quiet. We defeat Tywin not by killing men, but by killing hope. Break their faith, and the host crumbles. Who bears their hope? Sansa, standing near, answered. Sir Gregor Clegane commands right flank. Fear. But their hearts follow the lion's roar. Tywin thrives on reputation. Invincible, cold, inevitable. Shatter that, and swords waver. Robb eyed the map. Tywin's command tent sits here behind ridge, guarded heavy, but if we cut the head... Stannis' eyes sparked. I'll lead assault. Night landing from the river, climb ridge. Strike swift. Thou. Robb shook head. Too far, too watched. But we have a shadow in their midst. He turned to Sandor Clegane, silent at room's edge since returning to guard court. You know your brother's manner, night habits, weak points in guard. Sandor's burnt lips twitched. Aye. Gregor passes armor to squires at dusk. Helmet off, head bare as boiled egg. But I swore not to face that monster again save to kill him. Robb stepped closer. Then, kill him. At moonrise, lead troop through Sally Port, guided by your knowledge. Slay the mountain, sow terror, through camp. Meanwhile, I ride with Rowan knights to hammer siege lines, while Stannis men torch supply wagons. He scanned faces. Three-pronged strike. Break their will, they lift siege. Plans crystallized. Sandor with 50 picked Northmen and Tyrell Rangers. Stannis galleys silent upriver under black sail. Robb atop grey wind leading charge at dawn's first faint ember after chaos spread. Moonless sky birthed whispers of fate. Sandor donned dark leathers, helm shaped like snarling hound, then paused. Sansa appeared, candle-casting glow about her. Her voice trembled not. Swear to spare innocence. Sandor snorted. No innocence in Lion Camp. There is always one. She insisted, eyes searching. Remember, she might be me, once. A long beat. The hound dipped his head gruff. I'll try, little bird. She pressed a small brooch into his gauntlet, a silver wolf clutching rose blossom. For the men to know friend from foe. He tucked it inside jerkin and stalked away. Through postern gate, they slipped, hugging shadows until campfires flickered close, guards lulled by drizzling rain and long siege weariness. Sandor guided them past ale tent, between lines of restless horses, to pavilion where Gregor snored thunder loud. 2 sentries lounged, trading bones. Sandor lunged, silent, slit throats. Inside, Gregor lay half-armored, chest bare, massive sword within reach. Sandor stared at brother grown mythic, and felt old terror stir. He steeled himself, signaled. 3 Northmen hefted crossbows. Bolts thudded into Gregor's chest. Mountain surged up roaring. Sandor sprang, hacking at exposed neck. Steel met corded flesh, bit deep. Gregor's huge hand sized his throat, squeezing. Sandor gasped, vision narrowing. But then grey wind crashed through canvas. Robb's wolf? No, too small. It was a lean Tyrell hound they'd brought, fangs sinking into Gregor's thigh. Distraction enough. Sandor wrenched free, swung sword in desperate arc that severed spine. The mountain toppled like felled oak, tent collapsing atop. Torches flared, alarms rang. Sandor signaled retreat. They vanished into darkness, leaving giant corpse and rising panic. Simultaneously, Stannis' fiery hearts crawled along riverbank, torching supply wagons. Green burst of wildfire, Halanine's secret extra, cascaded skyward, dying night emerald. Robb, waiting with Rowan cavalry, saw the flare and spurred, bellowing. Hooves thundered. They struck the siege line flank, lances impaling pikemen still gaping at blazing sky. Tyrell arrows hissed from walls, meeting Stannis crossbow bolts, forming deadly pincer. Panic erupted. Rumors of Mountain's death raced faster than fire. Soldiers threw shields, broke ranks. Grey light edged horizon. Tywin himself rode forward, helm donned, rallying. But as he lifted sword, a rush of retreating foot crashed into his guard, knocking banners askew. A stray arrow, perhaps Tyrell, perhaps fate, pierced his horse's eye. Beast reared, pitched the Lion Lord into mud. Crossbow quarrel hissed, embedding in Tywin's thigh. Kevin dragged him from trampling chaos, but morale shattered like dry bone. Trumpets sounded retreat. Ziga towers burned unmanned, rams abandoned. A rout flowed west, thousands fleeing across blackened bridge, some stumbling into creek bed still scarred by wildfire. From ramparts, the populace watched lions fall. Cheers swelling. Robb pursued until noon, capturing wagons, freeing Riverland prisoners, then called halt. War needed end, not slaughter. He allowed Broken Host passage in exchange for oath. Tywin to yield command, retire to Casterly Rock, cede King's Landing and Crown Prince into joint custody of Realm's Council until peace forged. Wounded, pride bleeding worse than thigh. Tywin spat defiance, yet with ranks decimated, supply lost, commander of terror slain, he bowed. The lion kneeled before the wolf. A fortnight later, the throne room thrummed with expectant hush. The Iron Throne sat uncovered, burnished blades polished, yet empty. At its foot, a circular table of heartwood had been raised, ringed with chairs for each house. Direwolf, Rose, Fiery Heart, Kraken, Falcon, Fish, even Golden Lion, its seat vacant for now. Robb stepped forward, clad in wool-dyed deep gray, crownless, sword sheathed. Beside him walked Margaery, gown of winter roses. Sansa, shining in northern white. Stannis, stern and unbending. Davos, humble. Olenna, eyes twinkling thorn. Lords of Vale and Riverlands murmured. The High Septon intoned blessings both old and new. Robb spoke without elevation of voice, yet every ear caught each word. Last moon's turn bathed these stones in despair. Wolf, rose, and stag shed blood to break chains of lion. But conquest alone cannot heal 7 kingdoms. Today we pledge counsel, not crowns. Justice, not vengeance. I claim no throne. I claim duty, to guard realm until wounds mend and rightful order, chosen by lords and people both. Gasps rose. Whispers buzzed. Margaery squeezed his hand, pride in her eyes. Stannis' brows nodded, but he inclined head, acknowledging ground gained without bending knee. Olenna's smile curved razor true. She would shape new order through wits. Robb continued. A great council will convene at year's turn to decide the crown. Until then, this regency shall hold fast. Lord Stannis as warden of the narrow sea, Lady Margaery to succor small folk and rebuild granaries, Sir Davos master of ships, Sir Brynden Tully master of rivers and harbors, Lady Catelyn and Lady Sansa guardians of children lost in war. As for me, when peace takes root, I ride north to reclaim Winterfell, seat of my ancestors. Then, cheers erupted. Mixed voices of Reach and Riverlands, Stormlands, even some Westerlands knights who'd sworn anew. But louder still rose chant from balconies packed with small folk. Night Wolf! Night Wolf! They would not forget the king who would not wear a crown. Robb raised palm. Silence returned. The realm bled for pride. Let us now bleed only for healing. May the 7 and the old gods both witness this pact. He drew dagger. Sliced palm. Crimson welling. Stannis followed, then Margaery, then lords and ladies ringed, each pressing bloodied palm atop the next upon heartwood grain. Stark, Tyrell, Baratheon, Tully, Arryn, even begrudging Lannister maester sent by Kevin. A single pool of blood, one realm. Grey wind howled, a sound not of war, but of homecoming, deep and full beneath vaulting rafters. Outside, winter's breath whispered yet distant, but spring tasted near, fragile and sweet. Robb, hand bound in linen now, walked balcony with Margaery. Rain had washed soot from roofs. Dawn's gold lit spires anew. Market stalls bustled. Children laughed, chasing pigeons. Smiths hammered renewal. He inhaled scents of bread and river mist. Margaery studied him. You gave up crown you seized. I never seized it, he replied. I merely removed a tyrant from its seat. Now the realm chooses better. Will it choose you? That is for them. I would rather earn their trust in fields and council chambers than upon jagged iron. She smiled. Perhaps they will choose a wolf who smells of roses. He chuckled, warmth rare. Or a rose that runs with wolves. Below, Sandor stood with Sansa beneath budding orange tree transplanted from Sunspear Yard, arguing over name of new pup she'd rescued, a scruffy gray bitch with one ear notched by battle. Sandor grumbled the pup should be called Bite. Sansa insisted on hope. Robb watched them and felt weight lift. A flutter of wings parted clouds. 3 dire ravens bearing parchment seals. One from Jon beyond the wall. One from Bran wandering cold northern trails. One from Arya, discovered alive at salt pans and sailing south. His throat tightened. Home stretched wide as horizon, stitched now from broken shards of war. He looked to west where road gleamed, free of corpses, and thought of Tuin limping toward rock, pride in tatters, but alive. Mercy could break cycles sharper than swords. Perhaps one day Golden Lion would sit at council, penitent yet proud, and children unborn would trade ballads of rival beasts, turn shepherds of peace. But today, King's Landing breathed, not beneath crown, but under paling sky, washed clean by rain and hope. And the wolf, unburdened by iron, could at last lift his face to dawn, tasting winds that carried not stench of death, but promise of tomorrow. Gray wind pressed flank to his leg, and Robb scratched behind silver ear. "Come, old friend," he murmured. "We have walls to mend, lives to build, and when snow falls again, a hearth to warm in Winterfell." He offered his arm to Margaery. Together, they descended marble steps into courtyard bright with new sunlight, where smiths already shaped melted lion shields into plowshares, and nursemaids sang lullabies no longer drowned by rattle of siege engines. The city stirred like a sleeper waking from nightmare into fragile dream. And though much work remained, the young wolf knew in marrow that a single night's daring had shattered chains of fate, clearing path for alliances forged in ash and wildfire, tempered by mercy and blood. For the realm had glimpsed what one heart, steadfast and unbowed, could win in darkness, and, in the dawn that followed, what many hearts joined could build in the light. Clouds the color of old iron rolled eastward over Blackwater Bay, and the staccato hush that lingered after Tywin's defeat began to surrender to the clang of hammers and the steady babble of merchants returning to their stalls. Yet beneath the bustle, the city quivered like a limb freshly freed from chains. Half numb, half afraid the man with the key might return. Robb Stark felt it in the cobbles each time his boot struck stone, tasted it in the river wind riding up the narrow streets, heard it in the clatter of shutters hastily opened, then slammed as he passed. King's Landing had sworn itself to the night wolf. Aye, but oaths could rot as fast as barley beneath summer rain if neglected, and there were more seeds of rot than one man could pluck alone. He walked the street of Flower at dawn, cloak pinned low so as not to drag, gray wind padding silent at his heel. The great gray head turned left, right, nostrils twitching, as though scenting dangers more subtle than blade or poison. A baker paused mid-knead to stare at the direwolf, floured hands frozen over dough. A trio of children scurried behind burlap sacks, giggling when the beast snuffled after them. Robb paused long enough to buy a round loaf still steaming from the kiln, broke it, and handed crumbs to the smallest girl. The mother sagged in relief, swearing fealty with tear-stung eyes. Small gestures, Catelyn reminded him, built walls thicker than granite. He prayed she was right. At the river gate, Edmure waited, astride a glossy bay, parchment tucked in glove. "Raven from River Run," he greeted, face drawn beneath stubble. "Walder Frey demands safe passage south. Claims illness. Begs a healer in King's Landing. But you know Frey petitions as well as I. Each scrawl hides a dozen hooks." He passed the letter. A faint smell of mildew clung to it, as if the Lord of the Crossing had fished the parchment from the moat that ringed his drafty towers. Robb skimmed the lines. Walder couched plea beneath grievances. Broken betrothal, insult to daughters, river tolls unpaid since the night Robb's host slipped west to fall upon Tywin's baggage trains. "He's testing the fence," Robb said, folding the letter. "See if the wolf's gaze still burns across the trident." He snapped his fingers. Gray wind lifted muzzle, low growl rumbling. "It burns. But do we grant passage?" Edmure asked. "An old man, and a Frey healer's skills are thin." "No," Robb decided. "Healers ride north under guard instead. Frey steps one hoof south of the twins. Our riders shadow him to Harrenhal and back. He must taste courtesy but not weakness." He tossed the loaf's crust to Gray Wind, who swallowed it whole. "Draft the reply," he added, "and seal it with iron, not wax." As Edmure spurred away, reluctant diplomat in the saddle of a soldier, Robb gazed westward, where sunlight spilled over the low hills beyond the Lion Gate. Somewhere beyond those soft ridges Tywin's host limped toward Casterly Rock. Their horses lame, their banners soot-stained, their fear riding pillion. But the lion was not the only beast nursing wounds. In the north, the Boltons flayed truth as readily as flesh. In the Iron Islands, ravens hissed of a new king crowned in salt, iron, and storm. The realm was a tapestry fraying at every seam. Tie one knot, 3 threads snapped elsewhere. Footfalls scraped stone behind him. Sir Davos joined him at the parapet, nodding to the guards. "Fleet rides the tide within the hour," the Onion Knight said. "Stannis means a progress up the coast. Sharp Point, Massey's Hook, collect pledges while his lordship's star is rising." He studied Robb's face. "Leaves you the bay and the city, and all that creeps beneath." "And you, sir?" Robb asked. "I stay." Davos' shrug was half apology, half vow. "Storm's End holds fast enough, but Dragonstow's larders lie bare. Someone must negotiate grain while Stannis reignites old loyalties. The king trusts no one else to weigh purses without lining pockets." He offered a crooked grin. "And I'd sooner balance ledgers than kneel again beside Shadow and Flame." Robb clasped Davos' good shoulder. "Your counsel steadies rough waters. When Stannis returns, tell him the city has not forgotten his aid, nor his forbearance in Tommen's matter." Mercy for a child ain't soon forgot," Davos agreed. "Same for his mother's confinement." The look they shared needed no words. Cersei remained cloistered in the maiden vault, under gentle guard, writing letters that never found ravens bold enough to flee. They parted. Robb made for the Red Keep, gray wind brushing his greaves. The fortress buzzed like a hive split wide. Carpenters mending balustrades, Tyrell gardeners uprooting the queen's roses to plant new saplings from Highgarden, scribes lugging ledgers between treasury and council chambers. Above the din, hammers rang in the armory where Northmen and Reach smiths quarreled over rivet shapes and steel tempers. Robb ducked through arch and corridor until he found quiet beyond the Godswood door. Inside, golden afternoon slanted through scattered leaves of an oak transplanted generations ago, its trunk half the girth of Winterfell's weirwood yet venerable in southern eyes. A red sapling, gift from the Blackfish, smuggled south in wet moss, grew nearby, leaves like tiny stained glass hands. Here Maester Luwin's raven perched, preening under watch of Sansa, who knelt beside the roots arranging small parcels. Sweetgrass, feather, cairngorm stones. She looked up as Robb entered, a faint smile haunting her mouth. "I'm teaching the children how to bind wishes," she said. "May lore from Lorath, if you bury trinkets at a tree's foot, the wind carries prayers to the sky." Robb crouched. "And what wish do you send?" Her fingers hesitated on a ribbon of gray silk. "That Arya's next letter bears safer ink than blood." She tucked the ribbon beneath damp soil. "She sails to White Harbor, but word says Ironborn raid the coast. She pretends not to fear, yet I know that bravado." Sansa's gaze drifted to gray wind. "Fierce guardian, promise against night. Will you ride north soon?" "As soon as grain flows and the river calms." Robb sighed. "The Boltons feed crows on Winterfell's ruin. The Ironborn feed themselves on every shore from Moat Cailin to Seaguard. If I leave too early, the city wobbles. Too late, and the Dreadfort digs deeper talons." He touched her wrist. "When I march, you stay," voice of Stark in council. "Margaery's charm softens lords, but your memory of Ned keeps them honest." Sansa's smile steadied. "Then I'll tend this tree until it's strong enough to shade the realm." A gust rustled leaves. She added, "Mother waits in River Run for Frey answer. She fears your army fractures if marriage binds you south." "Then?" Robb rose, heart heavy. Duty braided vines around every choice. He could see Jane Westerling's eyes, tear-bright when she learned the betrothal must be annulled by Septon decree. "Honor to realm," Robb told her. "Mercy to thousands." She had nodded, stoic, but sorrow followed him like a ghost now. He wondered if one war ended only to spawn 10 lesser battles inside a man's soul. A page found him before dusk, breathless. Your Grace," riders from the north. "A woman in torn gray, bearing direwolf pelt, seeks audience. She will not give name, but the guards swear the wolf pelt is unmistakable." Now, hope speared him. Robb hurried to the hall, gray wind bounding ahead. The doors groaned wide, revealing candlelit expanse, sentries lining the aisle. A woman stood alone, shoulders squared, face half hidden beneath hood. Snow-caked leather clung to her frame, travel-stained, but the pelt draped across her back, black as moonless sky, silver-tipped. He knew at once. Shaggy dog. And only one person could have coaxed the direwolf's hide into willing cloak. He crossed the flagstones in 3 strides. "Rickon," he breathed, before he grasped that the child he remembered, wild, unruly, could not stand so tall. The woman threw back her hood, and a river of dark curls spilled over the wolf's skin. Her eyes glinted gray-green in torchlight, proud, wary, yet softening when they fixed upon his. "Not the pup," she said, "but his guardian, Osha, and he." Robb seized her arms. "Where is my brother?" "Alive," Osha assured. "North of the wall, if not devoured by snow or darker things. We sheltered at last hearth till the Boltons pressed." A crow spoke of a boy beyond the wall, riding a giant elk with skin-tanger eyes. The Umber Maester swore it matched Bran's tales. Rickon chased that story. She swallowed, throat working. Couldn't hold him. The wolf's call was stronger than nursemaid's lull. She stared at the high windows. "I came south for what men call safe. I found none, not till rumors said the Wolf King rules here." Robb's pulse hammered. Bran alive, beyond the wall. Rickon chasing. 2 brothers lost in nightmare snows. But, living. Hope kindled quick and fierce. He wrapped Osha's shoulders, guiding her toward warmth. Yet each step bred questions. Giants, skin-chanters. What power drew a crippled boy into the haunted north? Memories of old Nan's tales stirred, of the 3-eyed crow and children of the forest. He filed fear away. He must act. That night council reconvened. Robb introduced Osha, whose blunt recounting of Bolton raids chilled the hall. Roose Bolton, having slunk north when Tywin marched, had fortified the Dreadfort and sent his bastard son Ramsay to rule Winterfell's ashes. Ramsay hunted villagers for sport, flayed any who whispered Stark. Umbers bled, Mormonts clung to Bear Island, Carhold smoldered. And through it all, the Ironborn prowled shattered coasts, refusing recall even from their new king. One Euron Crow's eye, whose black-winged sails drank storms as wine. Karstark cursed. Greyjohn slammed fist on oak. Stannis scowled. "Winter wastes men faster than swords," the king muttered. "Bolton grows bold, because you crush lion, not wolves. Mend home, boy." Lady Olenna bobbed her teacup. "And leave this garden untended? Weeds sprout quick. A pretty flower's worth nothing if you've no gardener with shears." Her eyes darted to Tyrell Knights. Robb felt eyes weigh him. He unrolled 2 maps, Westeros and the Narrow Sea. Steel tokens marked armies, fleets, grain lanes. "We split the realm neither by border nor blade," he said. "We breathe as body, head here, heart there, hands that stretch north and south." His finger tapped the neck. "I ride home with 5,000 Northmen. Stannis lends ships to leapfrog Moat Cailin by sea. Davos commands the escort. His smugglers cunning steers through reefs Ironborn avoid. Over the reach, his finger drew circle. Lord Rowan holds King's Landing with Tyrell spears, Edmura's hand. Margaery sits as Lady Protector, Sansa as council voice. The Queen of Thorns trims weeds. Olenna's mouth curved. And Loras rides to Riverrun with River Knights to watch frays. A clatter of ascent rippled. Stannis' brows jerked, but he inclined head. Ships sail at dawn. In secret, after candles guttered, Robb found Margaery and the Solar where summer wine glowed ruby within glass. She listened to his plan, eyes luminous, but steady. "I will keep faith," she said. "Tyrell banners guard the walls, and your sister's honor shields my own." She poured wine, offered cup. "But know this, roses wilt if winter lingers. Do not tarry north so long, the realm forgets why it placed hope in you." He drank, warmth sliding down his throat. "I will return," he vowed, with banners of direwolf and white hart and crowned rose flying together. She pressed a soft kiss to his cheek, a promise, or a farewell. For a heartbeat he imagined a life where such simple touch was not bartered for corn or alliances. Then Gray Wind's impatient snort recalled him. By candlelight he penned letters, to Caitlin at River Run, to John in Castle Black, if John still held watch, to Lady Madge Mormont on Bear Island, to Galbart Glover in Deepwood Motte, to every clan chief who still remembered the dire wolf howl. Rally, he wrote. Winterfell calls. When dawn broke, Blackwater Bay shimmered steel-gray under gull cry. Stannis galleys unfurled crimson sails. Davos stood at prow of Black Betha, Onion Badge catching first light. The Northmen filed aboard in disciplined columns, Umber giants ducking rigging, Karstark archers slinging quivers, Manderley marines singing salt dog shanties. Robb walked the plank last, Gray Wind leaping ahead to sniff fishy coils of rope. Trumpets sounded from the quay, and the city answered with cheers, some genuine, some fearful, but noise enough to shake roofs. The ship swept south of the bay before tacking north, hugging coast to keep Lannister privateers guessing. Salt spume plastered Robb's hair. He stood astride deck, eyes on receding Red Keep. Margaery's figure dwindled to a blossom pinned upon rampart. Sansa's white sleeve fluttered farewell. The bells tolled slow, as if counting heartbeats between separation. Days blurred, wind fair then fickle. Gulls shrieked, dolphins raced prows. At Flint Cliffs, they avoided Ironborn longship, lurking among rocks. Davos taking soundings by memory to slip through shallows, too treacherous for deep-keeled foes. On the third dawn, a raven from the Manderley scouts landed on Yardarm. Bear Island under assault, Sea Dragon point aflame, but Deepwood holds, and the Iron Fleet splinters as siblings Euron and Victarion feud. Robb penned orders. Mormonts withdraw into mountains, harry raiders await relief. When pale aurora wove lights upon northern sky, the fleet anchored in a shrouded cove south of Cape Kraken. From here, Robb's host would march overland, wet peat, pine, and silent marsh. Scouts reported Moat, Kaelin lightly manned by stray Ironborn, most warships drawn west to settle Greyjoy feud. A gift of the drowned god, Davos mused. The sea takes as it grants. The march taxed sinew and spirit. Rain turned tracks to sucking mud. Insects bit through wool. Silent forests pressed like cathedral walls. Yet fires burned bright each night, and northern tongues sang songs of home that Greatjon taught Tyrell knights, till southern lads knew every verse. Siren water drained doubt. On the 10th day, they reached Moat Caelin. 3 toppled towers rose from mist like broken fangs, palisades patched with driftwood. A drizzle of arrows greeted vanguard, clattering off shields. Robb studied the ground. Causeways narrow, bog deep. He recalled Theon's boasts of the moat's impregnability to southern hosts. But we are Northmen, he murmured. He signaled. Karstark archers loosed flaming shafts into sedge. Smoke billowed, masking advance. Umber berserkers waded, chest deep, through watery channels known only to marsh dwellers bribed with silver. When horn sounded thrice, Robb drove center column straight along the causeway, Gray Wind darting ahead, jaws red with salt reaver blood. Within an hour, the Ironborn banner fell. Merciful terms were offered. Throw down weapons, return by boat, spread word the wolf returns. Most accepted, slipping into skiffs, anxious to flee Bog's ghosts. A dozen refused. They met umber axes beneath weeping sky. Robb claimed the gatehouse and lit beacons. Ravens launched to Winterfell's scattered allies. Moat Caelin stands stark once more. Ride. That night he dreamed of Winterfell whole. Towers proud, snowflakes gentle, father's face smiling from Godswood. He woke before dawn, tears salt on lips, to Osha's voice. Riders south. Bolton pink, dot. Through slit he saw them. Pale banners smeared with flayed man. Scouts no more than 20. Hunting. Robb armed silently. Let them ride, he told her. Let them sniff ruin. We leave ghosts to fool them. They marched by night, torches hooded. At day they burrowed into pine hollows, covered packs with moss, muzzled Gray Wind's warning growls. Thus they slipped through dreadfort patrols. At last Winterfell's shell appeared on horizon. Scorched towers, gatehouse collapsed. Smoke curled still from cracked stone, where embers smoldered beneath rain-soaked timber. Silence seized the men. Even Great John's boisterous heart stilled. Robb stood splay-legged, throat tight. Memories collided. Bran's laughter atop tower, Arya chasing cats, Rickon's stubborn pouts, Mother's gentle scoldings. All ashes now beneath Bastard's boot. Fury ascended cold and pure as star-forged steel. They arrayed in the Wolf's Head formation, Karstark bow, Umber jaws, Glover shield line. Scouting bands of spears crept through crofts, finding only starving peasants and Bolton fear. Near midday, a column of armored riders emerged from East Road. Ramsay Bolton himself at head, hair greasy, smile slick. He wielded a horn filled with pink fingernails, blew it thrice. Fires blossomed in crofts. Screams rose, a village torched for greeting Starks. Robb answered with charge. Great John roared, axes wheeling. Ramsay's line folded at first shock, but the bastard spurred a retreat toward the castle shell, flaming village as barrier. Davos archers sniped mounts. Riders stumbled. Grey wind lunged at Ramsay's steed, dragging horse and rider into mud. The bastard rolled free. Face spattered, drew blade curved like skinning knife. Robb dismounted, sword bared. Their circles narrowed. Grey wolf, pink man, ashes swirling. Ramsay slashed low, quicksilver, but Robb caught blade, riposted. Sparks flew. Bastard laughed, eyes mad. He feinted. Sliced Robb's forearm through mail. Blood seeped. Pain sharpened resolve. Robb pressed, hammered high blow that drove Ramsay to knee. Dirge of steel rang. Ramsay spat, reached for hidden dagger. Grey wind blurred, jaws crushing Bastard's forearm. Bone snapping loud. Ramsay shrieked. Robb swung, blade silencing scream forever. The Bastard of Bolton slumped into ash, expression carved in disbelief. Great John lifted gore-slick axe. Flay that! He snarled, planting direwolf banner upon corpse. News spread like sunrise. Bolton garrison threw open doors, plead mercy. Robb spared them flogging, demanded fealty under watch. He entered Winterfell's ruin, wind moaning through blackened halls. In the great hall, charred beams littered stone where high table once stood. He knelt, pressed palm to soot-covered floor. I am home, he whispered, tears tracking grime. Rebuilding began at once. Masons cleared rubble, carpenters felled pines. From White Harbor marched Sir Roderick Manderley with wagons of salt pork, and young Lord Wyllis greeting Robb with weepy grin. Spearmen of the rills, archers of the Hornwood, clans of the Flint and Norrie all swarmed through gates, cheering. North lived. But winter's breath nipped, even now snowflakes drifted. Robb summoned council in a surviving watchtower. To east lay threat. Others rumored stirring, wildlings massing. To west, Euron's longships. South, Lannister pride still raw. Frey daggers sharpened. And somewhere beyond the wall, Bran and Rickon wandering realms of Weirwood dream. Robb spoke. The realm will soon choose a king. Let them. We will guard their choice, but first we shield humbler folk, wives, babes, crofters. The North must not again bow to fear or hunger. He tasked Glover to shore Deepwood, Mormont to secure seas, Umber to patrol Last River. Davos he sent back sea-south with scroll for Margaery. Moat Caelan open, grain may flow, council of realm to gather at year's end beneath heart tree of Winterfell, where oaths bind deeper than gold. As ravens flew, snow thickened. Fires roared in makeshift hall. Stew bubbled. Laughter slowly returned, though hushed at memory of lost. Sansa's letter arrived, bearing rose-pressed wax. The city holds firm. Olenna trims traitors. Frey envoy stalled at River Run by measles or malice. Stannis returns with Stormlander banners. Tyrell harvests flourish, and Tommen studies sums under Maester's stern eye. One line made Robb's breath hitch. I find myself humming North songs and thinking of cold stars. Send word when the sky above Winterfell is clear enough to see them. He folded the letter by firelight. Outside, gray wind howled, not warning, but greeting, as if other wolves answered. Robb stepped onto rampart, snowflakes landing on lashes, and looked to the wall, faint pale line beneath aurora shimmer. Somewhere out there Bran followed a destiny older than thrones. Somewhere Rickon chased a dream of pack. Robb felt the land's pulse beneath ice and knew his fight, more than crowns or castles, was to keep that pulse beating, to hold night at bay. Behind him, men hammered new beams. Sparks flew upward like tiny suns. Each spark a story, a life, a fragile hope. He closed his eyes, letting the cold bite remind him he still lived. The war that began in one bold night upon Blackwater's hush had not ended. It had merely shed skin, become something deeper, vaster, woven through every heart that whispered a child's bedtime tale of wolves and winter. Robb Stark opened his eyes to the swirling snow. Let it come, he murmured. We are the songs we keep, the fires we share, the bonds we mend. Let winter test us. We will answer with spring. And far to the south, where autumn leaves still clung to branches around the quiet godswood of the Red Keep, a red sapling shook in sudden gust, its tiny leaves rustling like applause. The prayer Sansa buried there. One scrap of silk, one fragile hope, took root, and in that motionless moment, the wind did indeed carry her wish northward, fluttering across leagues of valley and vale, across rivers and ruined keeps, until it found the young wolf standing alone upon his broken wall, snow in his hair, resolve in his eyes, and whispered through the hush. Remember! He did. The snows came thicker once the old year broke, veiling the scars of Winterfell beneath quilts of white. In the courtyard by the remnants of the first keep, children skated on a shallow rink that had frozen over the burnt stones, their laughter darting like swallows between half-rebuilt towers. Yet even their breath rose ghostly in the cold, an omen of the chilled dread that prowled beyond the walls. Smiths labored by the glow of braziers, beating crumpled lion shields into stout nails and hinge plates. Seamstresses lined the great hall with woolen banners, the leaping trout of Tully, golden rose of Tyrell, fiery heart of Baratheon, direwolf of Stark. But Robb, trudging the ramparts at dawn, felt the wind's bite as a summons, a reminder that the world's edge lay only 300 leagues north, and something more terrible than Boltons or Ironmen moved in the dark. He had ridden alone at first light, gray wind padding behind, to the ridge where the heart tree stood like a sentinel of blood-red lements. The godswood had survived the burning, the weirwood limbs blackened yet alive, its carved face streaked anew where winter's teeth ashed away soot. Robb knelt, gloved hands cupped in snow. "Father," he whispered, voice muffled by the hush. "Mother would say I ask counsel of dreams when I should listen to men, but the men bicker like crows on a corpse. The realm waits to see what king I'll be, yet I've forsworn the crown and still must carry its weight." The face did not shift, but sap, like half-frozen blood, seeped at the corners of its hollow eyes. Robb closed his own, listening to the wind's vowels until he almost heard words beneath the howl. Remember the pack, remember the wall of flesh is thin. He stood only when snow began to drift sideways, driving him back toward the sprawl of reconstruction. Along the way, he met Lady Maege Mormont counting bundles of timbers. The Lady of the Bare Isles had arms thicker than some men's thighs and a laugh like rolling thunder, though today her mouth was drawn into a grim line. "Bird came from Long Barrow," she said without courtesy. "Spears vanishing beyond the shivering sea. Villages empty. My cousins swear the woods grow quiet by moonlight, and the elk herds bolt south at smell of something dead yet walking. I know old wives' tales. But these wives have steel in their hands and scars on their backs, and they're frightened. Winter's not only snow this time. Dendero." Robb felt the words bite. "I've sent riders to Castle Black 3 times. No answer. We know Jon was Lord Commander, but not whether he lives, if the Night's Watch is lost." He shook off frost. Tonight we gather every northern lord for council. Bring your maps, and bring the truth. Memem Salvator. When evening fell, the rebuilt common hall thrummed with firelight. Logs as thick as a man's torso crackled in twin hearths, throwing warmth across rush-strewn floors. Around the long dog-leg table gathered the stalwart of a half-ruined kingdom. Mage Mormont with her scarred daughters, Galbart Glover, gaunt from months in deep-wood defiance, Wyman Manderley, grown leaner but still grand in midnight blue velvets. Great John Umber towering beside them, his booming voice subdued for once. Davos Seaworth in black sealskin. Sir Roderick. Outside, Karstark outriders patrolled the walls. Inside, ravens croaked from the timber rafters. Robb stood at hall's narrow end, snowmelt dripping from his cloak's hem. He spread a vellum map. "We are not whole," he began, "but we are here. The lion's fangs lie broken. The flayed man has bled out. The krakens tear at each other's throats. Yet beyond every victory waits a deeper night. Reports place Euron Greyjoy's silence writing as far as the arbor. Tywin Lannister heals and hammers new blades for a second war. Frey's whisper of wings that will carry their vengeance north in spring. And past the wall." Only silence. Memsiwand. Wyman's jowls quivered. If the watch has fallen, every hearth from here to Old Town could soon host white shadows. Yet we've grain stores enough for one winter, not two. If the wall's broken, our first defense must be men, not stones. "That defense is the pack," Robb said. "I would ride in force by the King's Road, relieve Castle Black, learn our brother's fate." The mention of Jon drew murmurs, some hopeful, some doubtful. "But I will not leave Winterfell hollow. Manderley, you'll raise ships on the White Knife and ferry grain upriver. Meg, send your daughters to warn every clan on the Bay of Ice. Light watchfires each dusk. Great John, bring umber axes to last hearth. Screen our march. Davos sails to Eastwatch with sealed letters for Stannis. If his fleet still holds Blackwater, he can spare Drammons." He saw the hesitation flicker in their faces. To call upon a southern king again, after the North had bled to stand alone. Yet Davos' nod was firm. "And what of the Realm's Council?" Galbart asked. "I thought we summoned southern lords to debate springtime peace beneath these very beams." "Peace cannot bloom if winter devours us first," Robb replied. "The council will meet. Aye? But I ride before. Lady Margaery rules in my stead until I return." Watching their reactions, he saw worry that a Reach girl might grip too tight, but also relief that some power in King's Landing still favored the North. Robb's next words steadied them. "Sansa remains my voice at court. None knows our honor better." A hammer of wind rattled shutters, and the ravens squawked. Robb smelled snow and old fear, felt it swirl round the hall like invisible wolves. Then a new sound trickled beneath the storm. Bells, faint, uneven, from atop the broken gatehouse. Stark guards burst through doors, cheeks frost raw. "Rider at the gate," one panted. "Wears black, Night's Watch, staggers like a corpse." They hurried to the yard. Torches hissed in gusts, light flaring over a spindly figure, slumped on a dying horse. The man's cloak, once raven black, hung in tatters. Snow had iced on his beard. When Robb drew near, Grey Wind sniffed, hackles stiff. The man raised his head. His eyes were pale, pupils pinprick. But the face, they knew the face, though it had grown gaunt as a skull. "Samwell?" Davos breathed. Sam Tarly slid from the saddle and would have crumpled had Osha not caught him. "Wall," he gasped. "The dead march. We fled Eastwatch. Jon Snow." The ghost of firelight in his eyes snuffed out. He collapsed. Maester Morgan, newly appointed son of Old Town, hurried him indoors. Robb felt the courtyard sway, as if the stones themselves reeled. He helped carry the big lad toward the infirmary, the weight of him heavy as guilt. By dawn, Sam lived, barely. Hot broth laced with poppy-coaxed words from chapped lips. The tale spilled like chilled water. Eastwatch assaulted by whites, great spiders big as hounds scaling the walls. Ravens pecked from sky before messages could fly. Jon Snow had ridden for Hardhome to rescue wildlings, taken half the watch. They never returned. The final stand at the Shadow Tower fell weeks later. The wall still stood, Sam said, but unmanned, and the dead streamed south through shattered gates at Greyguard, clawing through snowdrifts in silence. He had ridden day and night, guided by small fires more months left along the coast, until the horse collapsed beneath him at Winterfell's gate. A hush settled over the council when Sam's voice faded. Meg struck fist into palm hard enough to crack a knuckle. Then it begins. Robb bowed his head, vision filling with Bran's tales, dreams of three-eyed birds and armies made of moon-pale ice. We cannot hold Winterfell waiting, he said. We ride tomorrow with every horse that can bear a rider. He looked to Sam. Eastwatch's boats, are any seaworthy? Some. Sam rasped, but black sails will not outrun storms of cold. You'll need fire, dragonglass, Jon said. His eyes fluttered. Light must be alive. Then sleep took him. Dragonglass. Robb recalled legends, shards of volcanic stone from the hells of Valyria. Some said it lay buried on Dragonstow's slopes. He would need Stannis' aid, but the Raven unknown. Yet other lore whispered of black stone in Skagos, in the caves beneath the Frostfangs. That evening Robb wrote 2 letters in stark wax. One to Margaery, requesting her envoys scour the citadels for obsidian lore. The second to Lord Davos, to be delivered on the morrow's departure, bidding him sail to Dragonstone himself, beg righteous fire of the Red Queen if need be. He sealed both, fingers trembling with urgency. He stood at his window before sleep, watching snow spiral under moonlight. In the white swirl shapes seemed to dance. Wolves, stags, roses, dragons of smoke. Somewhere a horn was blowing, deep, mournful. He shivered, yet not from cold. Gray wind pressed warm fur to his hand, a silent anchor to the living world. The host left Winterfell before sunrise, 3,000 riders, hooves muffled on snowy roads. At their head rode Robb beneath a woolen cloak clasped by twin sigils, direwolf and crowned stag, honoring the pact with Stannis. Umber riders scouted. Manderly bowmen marched with wagon trains loaded in secret, with barrels of pitch and torches dipped in lamp oil. Snow fell thick, but spirits burned bright. Each man knew he rode not for conquest, but for hearth and kin and a future thaw. By the second night, they camped in the ruins of Queenscrown village. Wind keened through leafless trees, tents rattled. Robb paced perimeter, gray wind ranging ahead. At a half-frozen pond he found Osha, crouched at water's edge. In her palm she held a shard of black glass, curved like dragon claw. Found it in the moat, she said when he neared. Old first men burial heaps crumble after rains. Perhaps more lies buried if we dig. Robb took the shard. Moonlight shimmered on razor edge. Dragon glass. A silent vow passed between them. He sent Glover's men to scour barrows by dawn. They unearthed a dozen more pieces, arrowheads, daggers. A start. On the 5th day, the watchfires of Last Hearth glimmered through sleet. Greatjon hailed his kin, and his uncle Huther Umber, half-frozen, manned the ramparts with a ragged defense. Snow White's lad, the old giant croaked in greeting. Come Howland 2 nights past. We burnt, and lost 50. They're testin' our bark. Robb shared Sam's story. The hearth hall fell to hush. Huther sank onto a bench, raked charred hands through beard. Then we ride to the wall. No time for thaw. An umber horn summoned every sworn spear. By torchlight they signed oaths on the hafts of ice-pitted axes. That night Robb dreamed of Bran again. His brother's voice echoing inside a tangle of roots. The wall in men's hearts is thinner than snow. He woke to frost on his beard, determined. Soon after, ravens arrived. One from Davos at Eastwatch. Ships battered but afloat, wildlings huddled behind crumbling palisade, fires dwindling. Another from Maester Morgan in Winterfell. Sansa sailing north on a Tyrell-fitted galley, against all counsel, with Margaery's blessing, bearing cases of obsidian from Dragonstone mines. Robb's heart lurched. He had prayed she would stay safe in the south, yet pride stirred. His sister, once fragile bird, now flew through storm seeking his side. Snow thickened. The host pressed on, skirting the wolf's wood where trees groaned with ice. Some nights they glimpsed blue lights flicker between trunks, but no whites attacked. On the 12th day, they crested the ridge above the shivering shore and saw the wall at last. A white serpent coiling across the horizon, faintly luminous beneath midday gloom. Columns of smoke rose at intervals along its length. Some signal of life, or mere sacrifice to hungry cold. A horn blast boomed from Eastwatch. Davos ships rode anchor below. 3 war cogs, patched sails, decks bristling with wildling faces gaunt as anchors. Robb rode down the slope, the army trailing. Upon the frozen strand Davos met him, beard crusted with rime. "You came," the Onion Knight said simply. "And you hold," Robb answered. Behind Davos stood a ring of black-cloaked brothers and ragged free folk. Among them, a girl with white-tipped arrows and fierce eyes stepped forward. Aelys Karstark, Karhold's lost daughter. She bowed. "I bring 600 spearwives. Stannis crowned me clan chief beyond the wall. We will fight." Robb clasped her forearm, acceptance without question. But Davos' face darkened. "The wall's haunts worse than we feared. Jon Snow never returned from Hardhome. Tormund claims giants fled west carrying 2 children, one paralyzed, one wild, but he cannot say if they live." Robb felt hope flare. Bran and Rickon. Yet chill lay on it. "We march at first light." They crossed Bridge of Skulls the next morning, ascending switchback stair to the very top of the wall. Wind screamed across that alien height, dragging tears from eyes. Robb peered northward. A landscape of bleached moonlit dunes, ridges of ice, forests fossilized in frost. In the far distance, shapes moved, lines, columns, trudging with relentless purpose. He counted more than he wished. Night fell bold and bright with pale stars. Manderley engineers poured pitch into braziers along the parapets, bowl shapes carved to spill fire out into darkness. Umber archers notched arrows tipped in dragonglass, each fletched with white feathers for ghost flight. Wildlings gathered drums, thumps vibrating like a second heart under the wall's frozen skin. The dead came at midnight. They arrived without cries, without horns, just the hush of snow crushed beneath thousands of feet that no longer felt the weight. First whites of men, jaws hanging slack, limbs stiff. Then half-collapsed bears, hoarfrost ripping through mangled fur. Blue fires burned in empty sockets, turning heads toward the wall as if drawn by breath's warmth. And behind them, tinted by starlight, thin men on skeletal elk, eyes glowing a deeper sapphire. The others. Horn blasts split the dark. 1 for rouse, 2 for stand ready, 3 for the enemy. Fires along the wall blazed alive. The dead reached the base and began to climb, hands clawing into ice, forming ladders of corpses. Arrows rained, dragonglass pierced skulls and bone. Whites fell, shattered, still twitching. But numbers were endless. Above the carnage, one other raised an arm. Icy mist billowed upward. A shudder ran through the wall itself, a groan like ancient timbers breaking. Cracks spiderwebbed the ice face, spreading toward the top. Robb felt the tremor travel under his boots and knew dread. They would break the wall. "Light the sea," he shouted. Manderley men hurled torches into the pitch cisterns. Sheets of flame cascaded, rivers of fire streaming down the ice face, consuming climbing dead in roaring conflagrations. Steam exploded, hissing geysers. Yet the cracks spread, creeping. Greatjon bellowed, directing men to flood fissures with boiling water to freeze anew. Aelys Karstark led spearwives in death-defying rappel, hacking at undead below with obsidian axes. Robb himself leapt to a lower platform to rally a collapsed section. Grey wind beside, fangs bared against the screaming storm. Lightning forked overhead, bathing the battlefield in seizure of white. In that flash, Robb saw a shadow crossing the torn clouds. A great winged beast of night, scales like broken moonlight, diving out of the dark. Fire erupted, but not orange flame. This fire was blue, impossibly cold, a torrent that iced the very air. It struck the wall some 30 yards to Robb's right. Ice cracked like a thunderclap. A sheet the size of a keep peeled away, toppling into the dead below with shattering roar. Screams were swallowed by the maelstrom. A dead dragon. Robb's heart clenched. Tales had sailed south. A dragon stolen at the far end of the world. Now he watched the truth wing overhead, rider cloaked in flowing shadows, eyes 2 lanterns of night. The blue dragon wheeled, jaws opening for another breath. Archers! Robb cried, though he doubted arrow, nor obsidian could pierce such horror. Yet umber longbows loosed. Black shafts streaked upward, tinked off ice-blue scales. Then a horn answered, not the watch's horn, but one deeper, older. From the eastern horizon surged another shape, scarlet wings beating hurricane, throat glowing molten. Drogandotsh. And astride him, Robb hardly dared believe, Jon Snow, black cloak streaming, a gleam of light at his hip. The dragons met in titanic clash, talons raking, flames colliding, one fire freezing, the other burning so hot it melted ice mid-air. Their roar shook the heavens. The battle on the wall paused as all eyes lifted. Drogon drove the blue dragon westward, away from the fissure. A gap of silence fell before the night exploded again with dueling bursts of frost and flame. Jon landed hard on the parapet. Drogon crouched like a mountain of muscle. Snow's dark eyes found Robb across chaos. No words passed, just brother to brother, stormlit Dottie. Jon drew a blade black as night and burning white. Long claw reforged in dragon glass and something stranger. "Hold!" he shouted, voice hoarse. "Break their lines. The Night King rides. We end him now." He swung onto Drogon once more, rising. The red dragon banked across the wall, Jon guiding toward the ice woods. Robb felt surge of hope. He rallied men to close the fissures, pour fresh pitch. The whites, deprived of dragon cover, faltered. Wildling drums hammered, northern horns answered. Together they pushed the dead back with fire. Hours blurred, the dark sky burned with streaks of dragonfire, ice storm, lightning. Just before dawn, a final scream rent the heavens. A high keening, ending in shatter of glass on distant wind. The blue dragon plunged beyond the forest canopy, vanishing. Moments later, something like dawn itself rose behind the trees, a pulse of orange that lit snowfields gold. Then, nothing. Silence descended. The dead below collapsed as if puppet strings cut, sprawling inert on crimson snow. The whites on the wall stilled. Incredulous shouts swelled. Victory? But men kept torches ready, wary. A shadow returned. Drogon emerged from the forest abyss, wings ragged, smoking wounds along flank. He wobbled, glided to landing on cleared section. Jon slid down, limbs trembling, a shard of ice embedded in his shoulder, hair crusted with frost. He staggered toward Robb, who caught him. They were brothers, among ruin. "It's done," Jon rasped. He shattered, dragon glass through the heart. He half laughed. Half sobbed. "Bran guided me. From roots beneath snow. He and Rickon are safe, beyond the wall still, with old powers. They broke the Night King's sight." Jon's knees buckled. Robb held him upright. Behind them, the sun climbed, first rays igniting frost on the wall. So it gleamed like glass. Men cheered. Some wept aloud. Wildlings danced. Umber giants bellowed. The longest night had not yet ended, but its heart lay broken in those frozen woods. The weeks that followed were tapestry of firelit mourning and quiet thanksgiving. They burned the dead, watched brothers, free folk, noble and low alike, on pyres that glowed against endless dusk. Dragons circled overhead, their presence both shield and reminder of fragile triumph. Ravaging columns of whites dissolved without the Night King to bind them, but rumor spoke of pockets still wandering until sun's rise burned them away. The wall held, patched by new ice, guarded by men of every clan. Jon healed slowly in a steward's keep. Robb visited daily, sharing news. Sansa's ship sighted near White Harbor. Sam recovering. Stannis marching north with Tyrell stores. Jon spoke little of his journey. Only that Bran, now half dream and half child, had whispered through ravens and roots, guiding him to a hidden glen where children of the forest forged spear of burning ice. When Sansa arrived, snowflakes danced like flower petals. She stepped onto the courtyard wearing white fox fur, eyes shimmering. Robb embraced her, tears finally falling onto her hair. She met Jon next, silent conversation of loss and found again. Behind them, Margaery disembarked, escorted by Queen of Thorns, scrolls of realms council under arm. Dragons banked overhead, and for once the roar that echoed was not dread, but promise. Spring thaw came late that year, yet it came. Under pale skies, 1,000 lords and free folk gathered beneath the flaming heart tree of rebuilt Winterfell. The small council of 7 kingdoms, north and south alike, took seats at a round table carved of weirwood and black oak. Jon Snow, refusing crown, pledged to rebuild the Watch as shield of all. Margaery Tyrell spoke for common folk, Lady Mage for islanders, Samwell for knowledge, Davos for seas, Aelys for the free folk now subjects beyond the wall. And Robb Stark, scarred and steadfast, accepted a circlet of simple bronze, not king of crowns, but warden of winter, first among equals in a realm sworn never again to place all hope in one throne. No coronation horns blared, no dragon fountains spewed wildfire. Instead, a hush fell while Sansa Stark read the pact of trees and thrones, binding south and north to share bread, grain, honor, and aid. When she finished, silence remained, profound, respectful. And in that hush, the wind rustled the heart tree's leaves, red on white. Outside the hall, children chased each other over fresh grass, sprouting through melted snow. A stonemason's mallet rang. A direwolf's howl drifted from kennels where new pups tumbled. High above, Drogon wheeled with lesser wings, Rhaegal's clutch of fledglings just learning sky's hunger. Summer seeds were sown in ashes. Dragons soared not as overlords, but as guardians against midnight follies, and fires burned in hearths from Dorne to Bear Island. Robb walked the battlements that dusk, as he had in the city a lifetime ago. Beside him strode Jon Snow, cloak fluttering, Longclaw at his hip. Sansa followed with parchment of new laws. Grey wind paced ahead, pausing to sniff spring air that tasted faintly of mud and thawed pine. The horizon was no longer a wall of white. It shimmered with pinks and pale gold. Robb watched and spoke softly. Father said a lord's duty is to balance yesterday's debt and tomorrow's promise in the same breath. Yesterday owed blood. Tomorrow, he gestured at the budding woods, belongs to those children laughing below. Jon nodded. Let's keep it for them then. Night may come again, but not tonight. They stood until stars pricked the sky, silent companions beneath ancient northern heavens. Across fields, watchfires burned not as beacons of dread, but as lanterns guiding exiles home. The north remembered, the south learned, and the realm, reborn from snow and shadow, turned its face to a dawn no longer haunted by the chill of the longest night. In the quiet that followed, as frost finally retreated before tender shoots of green, Robb heard the wind whisper once more through the heart tree's leaves, "Remember the pack." And he knew without doubt that this time the pack would endure. The dawn that crowned the first true spring morning of the year found Robb Stark already saddled, reins in one gauntleted hand, and the other lifted in farewell as his retinue rode south from Winterfell's gates. He left the castle under the joint stewardship of Sansa and Maester Morgan, Jon remaining to drill a motley night's watch reborn from free folk, Karstarks, and Manderly second sons. Robb's purpose was the Trident, where word of Lord Edmure's summons promised to draw the Freys, the Mallisters, and half the Riverlands into conference beneath a banner of reconciliation. Yet beneath that tidy mission beat grimmer threads. Whispers that Walder Frey harbored renegade red priests, that Tywin Lannister dispatched gold to outfit mercenaries in the disputed hinterlands, and that Euron Greyjoy, having fled the Reach with sails ablaze, prowled Slaver's Bay in search of sorcerers. 300 horsemen rode with Robb, Greatjon's bastard nephew Huther, Mage Mormont's middle daughter Lyra, a score of spearwives who refused to be penned behind walls, and Davos Seaworth as envoy of seas the realm had not yet claimed. Grey Wind loped in and out of the column, tail streaming like a battle flag. They crossed the green fork where ice still glittered on reeds, and camped on the heath of Blackbuckle Downs, where half-melted barrow mounds broke the land into ribs. That night by firelight, Davos unscrolled a salt-stained letter. "Storm's End is in tumult," he said, voice low. "Gendry Waters, Robert's bastard the smith, has ridden out of hiding with a company of Sellswords. Claims Stannis promised him a lordship. Some in the Stormlands say the Red Woman's flame proved ill omen, and that the realm now owes blood to pay her debts." "And now?" Robb listened, palm against Grey Wind's back. "Debts will wait. If the smith leads men, let them forge peace or hammer their own coffins. My fear is the crossing." 2 days after, fear found flesh. The army reached a bend where the king's road thinned to marsh track, and there the Frey ambush sprang. Arrows hissed from willow brakes, a scythe of steel aimed at Robb's heart. But Grey Wind leapt first, dragging Robb's mount aside. Shafts split air where his breastplate had been. Huther Umber roared an oath and slammed into the reeds with 20 riders, axes hacking. Lyra Mormont's bare-cloaked archers knocked obsidian-tipped shafts, old habit from the wall's defense, and sent them whistling at half-glimpsed shapes. Robb planted his standard, sword bared. "Leave none unanswered," he barked. But Davos' hand caught his bridle. "Look beyond," the Onion Knight warned. Across the fen, a pale banner fluttered, twin towers quartered by a pale blue cross of the faith. Septons in rough-spun robes knelt among the rushes, chanting devout canticles, while Frey men-at-arms shielded them with pikes. Their leader rode forth, helm off. Ser Ryman Frey, eyes red-rimmed, jowls pale with fast. He raised both hands. "Mercy, King of Snow," he called. "We swore no blood, only fear enough to draw you to parley." The High Septon himself petitions the crossing, an offer of penance for the Red Wedding, in exchange for absolution. Robb's sword tip lowered an inch. "Absolution is given by the dead, not by kings or septons." "Aye," Ryman replied, voice breaking. "Yet the dead will not answer. We must. Walder Frey is dying." "Some say already dead, and all his brood tears at the carcass. We offer hostages, gold, the bones of your bannermen murdered. Let us talk, before riders with lion cloaks arrive to claim us." Robb's host ringed him with wary steel, but his instinct felt no treachery, only desperation thick as the fen's fog. He gave nod. "At Seagard, 3 days hence, no more snares, Sir Ryman. My patience thins." The Frey bowed, melted into reeds. Huther returned bloodied but grinning. "Only 10 dead ambushers," he said. "We lost none. A small victory, yet bloodless enough to weigh upon Robb's dreams." They pressed on, finding Seagard's towers scoured white by winter winds. Sir Patrick Ma Lister greeted them on the Widow's Walk, his left arm and sling from skirmish with Ironborn scouts. "Euron's mongrels test every inlet," he admitted. "But the bigger storm gathers inland." He guided them to the adamant hall where Lord Edmure waited with banners of half the Riverlands, Blackwood ravens, Bracken stallions, Piper trumpets. The hall prickled, with the sense of wounds not yet scabbed. Robb stood before them, helm tucked beneath arm. "The wall of ice cracked, yet held," he said. "We have seen the Night King shattered, but the chill he carried lingers. If the 7 kingdoms fracture again, cold will seep through every fault. The north will not bow, yet we reach southward with open hand. Take it, or test the freeze." The speeches that followed tangled in grudges. Blackwood's naming Bracken's turncloak at Stone Hedge, Piper's accusing phrase of sabotaged barge lines, Malisters lamenting Greyjoy longships unchecked. When Walder Frey's litter arrived, carried by 4 thin grandsons, the lord of the crossing, a waxen husk beneath fox furs, silence knifed the air. Beside him tottered a dwarf septon with star crystal. Walder's eyes flickered open. "I kneel," he croaked from the litter. He could not stand. 2 grandsons lifted him, and even then he sagged like wet parchment. "I kneel," he repeated. "Forgiveness." No one moved. Then Edmure Tully stepped down from the dais and sank onto one knee so that he and the old man were level. His voice carried, "My sister's blood screams for vengeance. Yet a scream is only wind once the lungs empty. What remains is memory, and the realm. Rise if you can, Lord Walder. We will build gallows for those who plotted, tombs for those who fell, and a bridge for those yet living." He helped the old man wobble upright. Walder's tears left thin rills down hollow cheeks. Robb lifted his hand. "The realm will have truth before peace. Name the ones who swung the blades. Testify in Winterfell at midsummer. Your life until then belongs to the court, and your house's fate rests on its candor." Walder nodded, unable to speak. Neither Malisters nor Blackwoods dared challenge mercy after that. Yet each concession felt like stitching rotten leather. Robb wondered what bargain of honor he signed with such clemency. Night came, and he walked the battlements, watching torchlight flicker on Blackwater Bay far to the south. Gray wind padded close, low whine rumbling. That howl pealed again just before dawn. Different. Urgent. Riders galloped through the open gate, with Tyrell Rose banners drooping, their captain bloodied. "Ironborn seize Sisterton," he gasped, "then struck our supply flotilla on the Bight. Lady Sansa sails with it." The words slammed into Robb like a mace. Without waiting for counsel, he ordered saddles and spurred west along the Green Fork with a spear point of 500. They rode hard, changing mounts thrice. On the third dusk, they reached a seaside ridge overlooking Saltpans Bay, and beheld a nightmare tableau bathed in sunset ember. 6 burning cogs listed near the wharves. A monstrous longship with black wings carved upon its prow anchored beyond the spit. The silence, sails striped crimson from tarring. On the shore, survivors knelt under pikes, while masked priests daubed their brows with a dark gleam that was not paint but blood mixed with squid ink. At their center, Sansa, gown torn, wrists bound. Robb's vision tunneled. Yet training steadied him. Davos, the inlet. Huther, north flank. Lyra marked the priest with the dagger. Gray wind snarled as if comprehending. They slipped down the dune as dusk sank. Iron men feasted around driftwood fires. Above them stood a dark figure in captain's coat, face half-shadow under Seahawk helm. Euron Greyjoy regarded his captives with lazy amusement. A red priestess from Volantis murmured at his shoulder, palms steaming where she clutched hot coals.